In the bleakest days of the Second World War, as the U-boat menace choked Britain's lifelines, a single unassuming Royal Navy warship became the target of derision from the German High Command. Dismissed as an antiquated relic, its very presence was deemed an insult to the might of the Kriegsmarine. Yet beneath the scorn lay a potent, unyielding spirit, poised to deliver a devastating blow that would shatter Nazi arrogance and rewrite the grim calculus of naval warfare. The stage was set for an astonishing reversal. The year was 1942, and the North Atlantic was a cauldron of ice, fog, and death. Britain, battered by the Blitz and starved by the U-boat wolf packs, clung precariously to its maritime lifelines. From the wind-swept naval base at Scapa Flow, the Royal Navy grappled with an impossible task, protecting convoys stretching thousands of miles across treacherous seas, often with too few ships and too many threats. The strategic situation was dire. Every merchantman lost meant less food, less fuel, less material for the war effort. The Admiralty, stretched to breaking point, was forced to press older vessels into frontline service, ships that by all rights should have been relegated to training or scrap. Among these was HMS Defiant, a D-class light cruiser, launched in 1919. Her four twin 6-inch gun turrets and respectable speed were once the pride of the fleet, but by 42 her silhouette was dated, her armor relatively thin, and her anti-aircraft suite rudimentary compared to the sleek, modern warships of the Kriegsmarine. Intelligence reports, gleaned from intercepted radio traffic and aerial reconnaissance, indicated that German naval officers, particularly those serving aboard the formidable heavy cruisers like Prince Eugen or Admiral Hipper, openly mocked the Defiant. They referred to her as the old lady's walking stick or a floating museum piece, confident that any engagement would be a swift, one-sided affair. Kapitänleutnant Klaus Richter, a sharp-witted intelligence officer attached to the German Atlantic Fleet Command, had even circulated a caricature of the Defiant with rust streaks and a Union Jack patched with string, a cruel jest that found favor in the wardrooms of Wilhelmshaven. This mockery, though unseen by the British crew, underscored the vast chasm in perceived capabilities. Aboard the Defiant, Captain Alistair Finch, a man whose stern demeanor belied a deep affection for his ship and crew, felt the weight of these expectations. Finch, a veteran of Jutland and a career officer steeped in naval tradition, knew the Defiant was no match for a modern heavy cruiser in a stand-up fight. Yet his crew, a motley but dedicated collection of seasoned salts and fresh-faced conscripts, shared his quiet resolve. Chief Petty Officer Thomas "Tommy" Atkins, the ship's grizzled chief engineer, a man whose hands knew every rivet and pipe of the Defiant, often grumbled about the bloody krauts and their fancy new toys, but his eyes held an unwavering loyalty to his ship. Sub-Lieutenant Edward "Teddy" Davies, a bright young radar operator from Cambridge, was constantly tinkering with the ship's rudimentary Type 271 radar set, coaxing every possible mile out of its range, driven by a quiet determination to prove its worth. The crew of the Defiant was a microcosm of wartime Britain. Men from the industrial heartlands, the fishing villages, the quiet shires, all bound by a common purpose. They understood the skepticism surrounding their ship, the whispers that she was past it, but they also knew the fighting spirit that resided within her steel plates, and more importantly, within themselves. They had seen comrades lost, convoys decimated, and the grim resolve of Churchill's speeches echoed in their hearts. Their motivations were simple: duty, survival, and a fierce pride in the Royal Navy. They were the underdogs, undoubtedly, but their determination was a silent, potent force. The decision to engage, when it came, was not born of recklessness, but of grim necessity. A critical convoy, laden with vital supplies for the upcoming North African campaign, was threatened by a powerful German surface action group, including the very heavy cruisers whose officers had so readily dismissed the Defiant. With no other capital ships within striking distance, the Defiant, despite her age and perceived vulnerabilities, was ordered to intercept. Captain Finch, standing on his bridge, the North Atlantic wind whipping at his uniform, looked out at the grey, churning sea. He knew the odds were stacked against them, but the honor of the Royal Navy and the lives of thousands depended on their courage. "Gentlemen," he addressed his officers, his voice steady, "we have a job to do, and we shall do it." The Defiant turned her bow towards the approaching enemy, a lone sentinel against overwhelming odds, ready to prove that spirit and skill could triumph over steel and arrogance. The operational reality of preparing for engagement under wartime conditions was a brutal symphony of noise, cold, and relentless effort. Aboard HMS Defiant, the order to intercept the German task force plunged the ship into a maelstrom of activity. The North Atlantic, a theater of war as unforgiving as any battlefield, was already asserting its dominance. Gale-force winds whipped across the decks, sending spray high over the bridge, coating everything in a thin, icy film. Below decks, the constant pitching and rolling made every task a challenge. Men braced themselves against bulkheads, their hands raw from gripping cold steel, as they moved with practiced efficiency through the ship's labyrinthine corridors. The threat of U-boats was a constant, unseen menace. Every sonar ping, every distant explosion sent a shiver down the spine, a grim reminder of the ever-present danger lurking beneath the waves. The technological and logistical challenges were immense. The Defiant's aging equipment, though meticulously maintained by Chief Petty Officer Atkins and his engineering team, was being pushed beyond its limits. Steam pipes groaned under increased pressure. The turbines whined with a familiar yet unsettling tremor. Improvised repairs were a daily occurrence. A leaking valve might be patched with a combination of canvas and ingenuity. A failing electrical circuit bypassed with a jury-rigged connection. Ammunition, though sufficient for a short engagement, was a precious commodity, each shell a costly investment of wartime industry. Gunners meticulously checked their charges, ensuring every round was perfectly seated, knowing there would be no resupply mid-battle. Communication difficulties were exacerbated by the weather and the need for radio silence, forcing officers to rely on flag signals and runners, a testament to naval traditions that predated wireless technology. Yet, amidst the grinding pressure, the human element shone through. Crew fatigue was pervasive. Men snatched sleep in short, fitful bursts, often fully clothed, ready to spring to action at a moment's notice. But the famous British humour, a dry, understated wit, persisted. "A nice cup of tea before we sink the bastards, eh, lads?" a mess cook might quip, eliciting tired chuckles. Personal sacrifices weighed heavily. Letters from home spoke of rationing, air raids, and the quiet anxieties of families left behind. Yet this shared burden fostered a profound class unity. Officers and ratings, though separated by rank, worked together with a common purpose. Captain Finch often walked the mess decks, exchanging a quiet word with a young seaman, a gesture that reinforced the shared sense of duty. The preparation phases were not without setbacks. A critical hydraulic pump for A turret began to seize, requiring Chief Atkins and his team to work through the night, their faces grimed with grease, to effect a repair. A sudden squall delayed their rendezvous point by several hours, forcing a recalculation of their approach and raising fears of being spotted prematurely. Intelligence gaps were a constant source of anxiety. The exact composition and disposition of the German force remained somewhat fluid, relying on fragmented reports and educated guesses. But through it all, the British naval professionalism, adaptability, and the famous make, do, and mend spirit prevailed. Every man knew his role, every drill was executed with precision, honed by countless hours of practice. The gun crews, under the watchful eye of the gunnery officer, Lieutenant Commander Davies, no relation to Sub-Lieutenant Edward Davies, ran through loading and firing sequences until they were second nature, their movements a blur of coordinated effort. The bridge team, navigating through the tempestuous seas, maintained their course with unwavering focus. As the Defiant finally reached her designated position, the wind howled, the waves crashed, and the ship shuddered with every impact. The general alarm sounded, a piercing, urgent shriek that cut through the ship. "Action stations!" The call echoed through the decks. Every man moved to his post, a quiet resolve etched on their faces. They knew they faced a superior German naval force, a fleet designed for dominance, but the Defiant and her crew were ready. The stage was set for a confrontation that would defy all expectations. The engagement began not with a bang, but with a flicker on Sub-Lieutenant Davies's radar screen. The faint blips, initially dismissed by German intelligence as mere weather anomalies or distant merchant traffic, quickly resolved into distinct contacts. German commanders, confident in their superior firepower and the perceived obsolescence of any British vessel likely to be in the area, had initially dismissed the threat. Intercepted communications, later declassified, revealed Admiral Erich von Kessel, commanding the German task force, scoffing at a report of a single British cruiser. "Let the old tub come," he was recorded saying. "She'll make a fine target for our gunners." This initial Nazi confidence, rooted in a rigid adherence to material superiority, would prove to be their undoing. The first engagement was a masterclass in British tactical innovation and seamanship. Captain Finch, exploiting the atrocious weather conditions, a driving rain squall and heavy seas that favored the smaller, more agile Defiant, closed the range under the cover of the squall. His strategy was audacious: to get inside the effective range of the German heavy cruiser's larger guns, where the Defiant's rapid-firing 6-inch guns could deliver a punishing barrage. The Defiant's Type 271 radar, meticulously tuned by Sub-Lieutenant Davies, provided crucial, albeit intermittent, targeting data through the rain, giving the British a vital, if fleeting, advantage in the chaotic conditions. When the Defiant emerged from the squall, she did so with a devastating broadside. Her guns, firing with a speed and accuracy that stunned the German gunnery officers, immediately found their mark. The first salvo straddled the lead German heavy cruiser, Lützow, sending geysers of water high into the air. The second, fired barely 30 seconds later, struck home, tearing into Lützow's forward superstructure and igniting a fierce blaze. On the German bridges, genuine confusion reigned. Intelligence officers, who had confidently predicted the Defiant's easy destruction, were unable to explain the pattern of hits, the speed of fire, or the unexpected tactical approach. Commanders faced inexplicable losses, their rigid doctrinal training offering no immediate counter to this unorthodox attack. Analysts debated contradictory data, unable to reconcile the old tub with the deadly efficiency now being unleashed upon them. The doctrinal clash was stark. German naval doctrine, while emphasizing precision and overwhelming force, often struggled with improvisation and adapting to unforeseen circumstances. The British, by contrast, with their long tradition of individual initiative and Nelsonian touch, were masters of flexible tactical adaptation. Captain Finch, rather than engaging in a static gunnery duel, used the Defiant's speed and the churning seas to his advantage, weaving and feinting, presenting a difficult target while maintaining a relentless barrage. The British crew's professionalism under fire was exemplary. Despite the deafening roar of their own guns and the terrifying splashes of incoming German shells, they worked with calm efficiency. The gun crews, their faces grim but determined, loaded and fired with a rhythm born of endless drills. Lieutenant Commander Davies, the gunnery officer, calmly relayed corrections, his voice steady amidst the chaos. The deadly accuracy of their gunnery was a testament to years of training and the superior fire control directors, which, though older, were expertly operated. The Defiant's 6-inch shells, though smaller than the German 8-inch, were hitting vital areas with alarming regularity, causing fires, disabling systems, and sowing panic. The mounting German losses were undeniable. Lützow was now listing heavily. Her forward guns silenced, her speed drastically reduced. A German destroyer attempting to lay a smokescreen was caught by a precise salvo and exploded in a spectacular fireball. The German fleet, designed for overwhelming power, found itself unable to counter effectively. Their larger guns struggled to track the agile Defiant in the heavy seas, and their rigid formations made them vulnerable to the British cruiser's unexpected maneuvers. As another German destroyer took a crippling hit, the German fleet finally recognized they faced an unprecedented challenge, one their doctrine simply could not overcome. The old lady's walking stick was wielding a sledgehammer, and the Kriegsmarine was reeling. The conclusion of the engagement was swift and decisive, a testament to the Defiant's unexpected ferocity. With Lützow crippled and 2 destroyers sunk, Admiral von Kessel, his arrogance shattered, ordered a general retreat. The remaining German vessels, battered and disoriented, turned tail and fled into the stormy North Atlantic, leaving behind a trail of smoke and debris. The Defiant, though scarred by near misses and with her paintwork scorched, had emerged victorious. The strategic impact was profound. The critical convoy, initially threatened with annihilation, passed safely, its vital supplies reaching their destination. Allied casualties, which could have been catastrophic, were prevented, and the German surface raiding capability in the North Atlantic was severely curtailed for months. Aboard the Defiant, the aftermath was a mixture of profound relief and utter exhaustion. The silence, after hours of deafening gunfire, was almost unsettling. Men slumped against bulkheads, their faces streaked with grime and sweat, but their eyes held a quiet triumph. There was no wild cheering, no boastful exclamations. Instead, a characteristic British understatement prevailed. "Rather a good show, that, wouldn't you say, Captain?" Chief Petty Officer Atkins remarked to Captain Finch, wiping his brow with a greasy rag. Finch merely nodded, a rare, tired smile gracing his lips. "Indeed, Chief, indeed." Cups of hot, sweet tea were passed around, a small comfort after the ordeal. The broader consequences of this engagement resonated throughout the Royal Navy. It influenced naval tactics, demonstrating that determination, superior training, and tactical innovation could overcome material disadvantage. It vindicated British naval innovation, particularly the effective use of radar and fire control in adverse conditions. The Defiant's action proved that the spirit of the Royal Navy, the Nelsonian touch, was far from dead. The fate of the protagonists varied. Captain Alistair Finch, though never one for public accolades, was quietly awarded the Distinguished Service Order and continued to command with distinction, his reputation as a shrewd tactician cemented. Chief Petty Officer Thomas Atkins, after seeing the Defiant through the rest of the war, retired to a quiet life in Portsmouth, his stories of the old tub and her finest hour becoming local legend, though never widely recognized by the public. Sub-Lieutenant Edward Davies, his radar expertise now highly valued, went on to a distinguished career in naval electronics, contributing significantly to post-war radar development. Many of the ordinary seamen, the unsung heroes, returned to civilian life, their extraordinary courage during that fateful engagement a private memory shared only with their closest comrades. The long-term legacy of the Defiant's victory was significant. The engagement was studied at naval academies, a case study in asymmetric warfare and tactical brilliance. It influenced post-war naval design, emphasizing the importance of advanced fire control and radar systems, even on smaller vessels. It became a quiet yet powerful part of Royal Navy tradition, a story whispered in wardrooms and mess decks, a reminder of what could be achieved against overwhelming odds. For decades, the full details remained classified, shrouded in wartime secrecy. It was only through the painstaking work of historians, poring over declassified documents in the National Archives, conducting interviews with aging veterans in their twilight years and cross-referencing naval records that the full scope of the Defiant's triumph came to light. This action, whether famous or initially forgotten, represented the very best of British naval heritage: courage in the face of overwhelming odds, professionalism under fire, and an unshakable determination to defend the realm. It proved that the spirit of innovation, coupled with the steadfast resolve of ordinary sailors doing extraordinary things, could indeed turn the tide. If you've been gripped by this tale of British grit and naval triumph, do give us a like and consider subscribing to keep these vital stories of courage and ingenuity alive. Share your thoughts in the comments below. What does the spirit of the Royal Navy mean to you? Let's ensure these incredible chapters of our heritage are never forgotten.